first time back in a very long time. So thank you for joining me on your big adventure, your journey. Usually I introduce you and sort of go through what you're doing, but I think for what you're doing in particular, I think you should introduce yourself and explain what you're 2/3 of the way in completing.
Yeah, I am. I'm 2/3 through, which is phenomenal considering I'm still here on the brink of Queensland, New South Wales. I haven't crossed the border yet. I'm running from Cape York to Melbourne. It's 6,200 kilometres non-stop without a break.
Yep.
Well, I'm doing one marathon per day for 150 consecutive days. And that's longer than the bird's eye flight. If I was to bomb it down the Bruce Highway, it would be 3,800 kilometres. So the reason I'm going longer is for a few. The record I'm trying to break, the Guinness World Record, is the most amount of consecutive marathons by a female. It's currently 106 and it's held by 2 British women. They equalled it, which don't get me started on why one person didn't go one extra.
There was one, I think it was recently, there was a lady who had one leg.
Yeah, so that's been beaten.
Oh.
Yeah. So when I first dreamt this up, this kind of adventure, the record was low, like high 80s, and then an American amputee beat it, and she ran 94, and I thought, oh, it's getting higher. Yeah. And then someone else broke it to 100, and it's since been broken to 106. This is all since 2019.
So what are you on? You're on 90.
I'm on 93, so I'm almost there.
You're almost there.
I know, I'm almost there. I'm going to break it in Newcastle. So that's.
And I love how you're saying you are going to break it. No, but you will. Like you look in fine form. Like as I said before, like your feet look absolutely fine for someone who's been doing 90 odd consecutive marathons in a row.
Absolutely.
That's insane.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm so stubborn at this point. You know, you've done 93. You're not going to stop now. I'd feel like I would walk it, like not walk it in, like I'm going to walk it in, but physically walk it if I had to, just to get there. But that's not where we stop. I'm trying to get to 150. My plan A is to get to Melbourne before anything else. My plan B is to get the record, and then C is just have a good time, which I've done so far. When it crosses your mind, are you going to stop at 150 or are you going to go 151? Oh, I think I'll stop.
You sure? I'll go 151. So with all that, and you're raising money for something which is?
I'm raising money for the Wilderness Society. So I have a big love for native animals in particular. I'm going for a Guinness World Record because on the flip side, Australia is a world leader in biodiversity loss, which, isn't a record we should be proud of at all. So I'm taking a positive world record to contrast it against a really bad world record and go, okay, well, let's use my medium, which is running, to raise awareness and money for a cause that needs a lot of attention. I mean, here in Queensland where we are now, the koala is endangered, and a lot of people wouldn't know that. We've lost 60% of our koala population in recent years alone. These are globally significant animals that if we don't do something about or for, they won't be around when our children are old enough to show their children animals. They'll just be, dogs, cats, cattle. It will be no native Australian, fauna and flora.
Yeah. And to go a bit deeper on that, like where does that stem from? Because some people, the main theme these days is, of course, mental health. That's that big thing that everyone raises money for. But then, when you messaged me and then you're like, I'm raising it for this, I went, oh, this is something completely different. This is something new. So where does that stem from? Because there must be a history there, or you just enjoy wildlife.
Yeah, and to be honest, mental health plays a role. I mean, I'm not raising money for mental health, but my mental health is running through the bush, through national parks. So there's a selfish element where it's like, well, if we don't have any national parks, I can't run through the valleys and forests and mountains. They won't exist. So I've always loved animals, but I think my love of native animals has stemmed from my family. I think every time we went for a walk growing up and we'd see an echidna, it was a very big deal. Like, oh, that's an echidna and a wombat, and they're just so unique. And you travel around the world and you see these animals that are absolutely nothing like ours. And sometimes we do take them for granted, but growing up in an area in the Yarra Valley in Victoria where there was just an abundance of these animals, and then you go back now and the areas you'd run through are now housing estates or car parks, as they say, that it's very quiet. It's not such a a prevalent thing to see. It's almost like a rare thing to see in a echidna these days. And so I guess that was, without even asking me what would you run for, that was always it. It's hard to explain. It wasn't a pivotal moment. It was just something that's always been close to my heart since I was a little girl. And I guess also we took in a lot of animals. If we'd see an injured bird, it was just always in our house. Or so it's just been around me. So I've always been, it's in my, the forefront of my, I guess, attention. So when I knew it was so bad, I thought, okay, this is what I need to do.
And, I think that's a perfect segue into, you love animals. Then how do you transition and how do you jump from, okay, I love animals, I want to do something, to coming up with this insane feat of running? How does that cross your mind to go, yeah, I'm going to run 6,200 kilometers? Yep, I'm gonna do it. Like, how does that? Where's the jump? How do you put that together? Yeah,
it's lockdown, short and sweet. So I always I always chose these crazy feats. I always wanted to run up, the highest mountain in Victoria, or I wanted to do these crazy crossings. I've always done adventures like this, but in a smaller format. In fact, my focus prior to 2020 was road racing. I was pretty competitive on the Victorian racing scene for half marathon, 10K, up to the marathon. I loved it, and I'd gone all in. And in 2019, I was the fittest I've ever been, and I tried to race a couple of overseas majors, and eventually I got an elite entry to Tokyo.
I saw that. Yeah.
And the race got called off because COVID, and so I came home, and then I had all of this fitness that we all had. We probably all had it. I know hundreds of people who had a goal race, and I had all this fitness and drive and motivation and nowhere to direct it, and it bottled up over the COVID period. And I was in Melbourne lockdown, so we couldn't run for more than 60 minutes. We couldn't go more than 5Ks from our house, so it exacerbated. It built up and it built up and it built up. And at the same time, I was going through a breakup after 7 years, so I was on my own after being in a relationship. I thought at the end of that breakup, I'm going to be a strong, independent woman. I'm going to go move in by myself. And so I'd isolated myself from all of my friends. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. And so after about 6 months, actually the mental, I was in a really bad headspace, and I thought, no, I need to get out of this. So I went through the quarantine period in Brisbane, and I was there for 2 weeks in a tiny room with no air. They wouldn't let you walk. And so I watched Beau Miles. He ran 650 kilometres over the Victorian Alps in one go. Crazy guy, if you ever get to meet him. Yeah. Awesome guy.
He's a young dude.
He's not actually. What's young? Yes, man.
I'm thinking of a different person.
No, he's the one that did that a marathon every hour for 24 hours, but in between he did like all this. No. What did he do? He did 1 kilometre every hour for 42 hours. That's it. So he did a marathon over 42 hours, but then he did all this stuff in between. Great clip if you get a chance. Anyways, you know him.
He's I know exactly who you're talking. He has a real big YouTube channel, and he lives out in the where does he live? I know exactly, and he does the canoe.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's him.
Everyone go check him out. He's actually really, really good.
Yeah, he's super interesting. Yeah. He's a normal guy that does these wacky adventures, and that brings it back to the history of the land. Anyway, I've gone on a tangent, but I was watching one of his clips, and I was in this terrible headspace, and I had all this energy and all this fitness and all this motivation to drive, and I thought, all right, this has been a childhood dream of mine. I'm not happy where I am. Why not do it right now? Like it has to be now, or it's never happening. The borders are closed. We can't travel anyway. So I quit my job, and here we are, just like that.
And I think the question we all ask to anyone doing things like this is the logistics side. Like, you come up with this idea, then how do you plan for something like this over, a 3-month period? Like, for example, what's his name? James Lawrence, the guy who did the 100 consecutive Ironmans in 100 days. So, but he did that in his hometown. So, logistically speaking, he was back at home at the end of the night. Everything was there. How are you doing this by, I know you're camping and whatnot, but with water and food when you're up, around Cape York area, there's nothing up there.
There's nothing.
So how do you plan like day to day? Like, of course, there's going to be things that go wrong that you need to fix, but like logistically speaking, how does that work from top to bottom? Like, what's the plan? How are you planning this?
It took so much more work than I could ever explain. It was, the lead up was astronomical. Firstly, finding sponsors was always hard.
So anyone you want to shout out?
Oh, there's heaps. But yeah, even simple things like my trailer, the Trackabout camper, that's a sponsored. But, these are very expensive, very technical trailers. And we couldn't just get any trailer because we were going to the Cape. So then, understanding if I could afford to do this was the first thing, trying to find a budget. We have a very low budget. It's very shoestring. We're very generous. People have been very generous with us having, giving us food and, accommodation from time to time, and I'm very grateful for that. And then once we'd got the bare minimum of things covered, and when I say bare minimum, it was just shelter, which is the trailer, and a couple of like bits and pieces that I needed, so shoes.
Shout out to
Tarkine. Big shout out to Tarkine because they're aligned with my mission. So all recycled goods.
You got me onto them, to be honest, because I saw they were sponsoring the run, and they've popped up a few times. Yeah. I was like, is this just another, some guy set up this thing in his house and he's importing it from China or anything? And then I did a bit more digging and went, so I think I'm going to end up buying a pair.
You should.
I really want to.
Yeah, they've just released their second version because, they're only a couple of years old. And yeah, it's incredible. I have run in the same pair every day now, which I would usually never do. I would always rotate. So I've been so impressed. And just a little behind the scenes, they're about to release a trail shoe, which I'm getting a little prototype sent to me to try out. So yeah, they're growing at a really great rate. And, profits from Tarkine go straight to Tarkania Forest in Tasmania, the Bob Brown Foundation. So it's 1% for the planet. It's actually more than that. It's 2 or 3% for the planet. So it's aligned with what I'm doing. They're an environmentally friendly shoe. And most of my sponsors are. So getting those aligned sponsors was the first thing. And then I guess from a day-to-day thing is just working out how much food and water we would need. So I was lucky to have a bit of a support crew at the top who on the bike, so I would run and there would be about 4 litres of water on a push bike in between a bag on the front and backpacks. And then I also had my camel pack too. So there'd be enough water to go about 4 hours, 5 hours for 2 people. We did run out many times. Sometimes the bike would have to scoot back to camp, pick up more water and drive it back.
Gotcha, yeah.
That was hard, and you end up eating the same thing over and over again because it's always fried rice or it's always a curry. So I did get very bored of the same food, but it was all worth it for the beauty of it. There was no one else running out there. I was the only person running, and some days the only thing I would see would be cows or the occasional birds, and that was absolutely it. I ran the Telegraph track, which is interesting, and we did take the support bike, but it was silly because it was way too sandy, so I actually got through easier than the bike. But yeah, the day-to-day has been really interesting, and it's, to be honest with you, one of those things where you have to spend a lot of energy on a day-to-day basis organising it, whether that's organising the next campsite, setting up the camper, packing up the camper, cooking, all those things that you still need to do, and you always have to pack up, so you never know where your stuff is, so you're constantly looking for things. So yeah, that's another thing that most people that would do it, for example, I know that the girls with the current record, they just did it in their hometown too. They could come back to their house where they have massage boots and a physio, and I couldn't do that. I was on the road the entire time, and yeah, I did get one injury maybe 3 days north of the closest physio, so it was in the Daintree.
It's not 3 hours.
No,
it's
3 days.
72 hours. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and so I had to run on injury for 3 days longer than I would have because I couldn't get to Port Douglas. And then eventually I got to Port Douglas, and it was a Sunday, and this amazing woman came out and saw me on a Sunday. So yeah, you have to think of everything else that you wouldn't have to think of. But I think for me personally, that's part of the wild adventure and the challenge, and it's what inspires me the most. So it's worth it.
And troubleshooting when you know 3 days is it's not 3 hours, it's 3 days, and you know problems like that arise. And for you, what were your, like, even now, because I'm talking like past, present, future, like on your first, let's say 40 days, and what were some of the problems that were coming up, and how did you fix them? Because it would have to be a fix there and then, and troubleshoot there and then, not a lead out.
Yeah, so everybody that has done, I reached out to everyone I could find on Instagram that has done a similar thing before, and they all told me, all 5 or 6 of them, told me that you can't quit in the first 2 weeks. You know, if your body will hate you in the first 2 weeks, 14 days. Like, don't take any time off in the 14 days. Don't quit in 14 days. And I thought, you know, of course.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's like, surely you get through the first 2 weeks. It's the last, 6 weeks that'll be hard. But they were all right. Like, my body was so tired. I got 3 injuries in that first 2 weeks. And I just remember getting to day 14 and being like, yep, I got this now. I've got through all my injuries. And that was the first thing we had to problem solve. And that was due to taping my own little bit of knowledge on physiology. Shout out to Dave McNeil, who is my telehealth physio that I would call all the time, and he would just offer advice. He still does, from Melbourne. What a legend. The car was the other thing. We have a relatively old Prado. So as much as it's pulling this brown spanking perfect camper trailer, it had 3 batteries that went wrong over the corrugations at the Cape. Yeah. It would unscrew everything. So it's more the logistics of the car.
Yeah. But like, what do you do when shit's gone south? Like, how do you fix it? Because I know for me, I would lose it. Control the controllables. But when you can't control the controllables, what
Absolutely.
do you do?
I have lent on the kindness of strangers so many times. And again, I guess another shout out to a sponsor. But so we're sponsored by Young Henry. So we had a lot of beer on hand. Oh, cool. Now, I'm not drinking much because I'm running every day, but beer is currency, right? Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I would say I would stand on the side of the road or at the campsite, and I would almost be like, if anyone could help me, they could have a 6-pack of beer, and everyone would come out and I've given so much beer out to people that have fixed coil issues, battery issues, fridge issues. That's
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it just goes to show, like, with everything going on in the world and all the shit we see on social media and the news, there's a very kind world out there, and you get to see it firsthand from what you're experiencing, and that's the beautiful part. It's not so much, it is so much about the run, but when you get to experience that real love and people helping, it's just puts it back on you, like how you are as a person as well, which is amazing.
Absolutely. And it's so real life. I mean, we were at a campsite, my partner and I, who is my current support, at a campsite, and we'd asked the campsite, I guess, hand on deck to see if he could help fix some drawers for us, because they were causing us so much grief. We couldn't get into any of my recovery stuff, so none of my multivitamins, my Theragun, things that I needed on a day-to-day, my foam roller, and I thought, this is sucks. It had been giving us grief for a week, and he couldn't fix it, and so he left, like, no worries, man, that's cool, we'll get it fixed professionally. Anyway, like 7 p.m. that night, the neighbouring campsite, he walks over and he goes, what's this I hear about a drawer not working? And then proceeds to spend the next hour just unbolting our entire trailer to fix it for us with nothing in return. And we're like, whoa, the world is full of beautiful people. And it makes me, and the biggest thing I've learned from this is that I want to pay that forward. If I see someone in help, don't just shy away from it. Actually reach out and help them back. And it's definitely taught me to be a better person because of how much has been sent my way.
That's a rule I sort of have in my household with the kids and whatnot. Is that if you feel like it's the right thing to do, just do it.
Yeah.
Day before yesterday, there was a lady, and she was older, had a really big smile, and I was like, she needs to know that she has a beautiful smile. So I'm like, hey, you have a beautiful smile. And she turns around, starts tearing up. She goes, that made my absolute day. I needed that. And then that was, and it's stuff like that you just pay it forward. If you feel like it's right and your intuition tells you, do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If I see someone with a car issue now, I'll I mean, I can't fix it. I mean, I don't, but you know what I mean? I'll do what I can to help them. I'll help them get RACQ. But yeah, I mean, but that's definitely something I've learnt from this. And to be honest, just everyone that's reached out to run with me and, you know, invite me into their own run clubs, just here. Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to
little Salt Social over there.
Hey, the man behind the lens. Anyway.
Absolutely. But that's the stuff that, you know, it's hard running by yourself. So if you get invited into the raddest run club on the GC and you go for a jog, you know, you've got all these people around you that, you know, get you through it.
Yeah, they're there for you. They're there for the, you know, the social side of things.
Absolutely.
It's the community. Now, I want to change gears here a bit and sort of just really go deep on, you know, there's a quote I absolutely love, Dean Karnazes, you know, endurance is to endure. And, you know, every day you are waking up, running a marathon. Every day your body is hurting. And that video, you know, I messaged you about, like, you know, the crying. For me personally, that when I see someone in that state, that goes to show how real and raw it is. And, you know, just, you're tearing up, you're hurting, you're not looking, I'm not saying you're not looking great, but you weren't in fine form.
No.
And, you know, how do you personally get through that pain? And, you know, this can be for anything, and anyone can, you know, people going, not just with running, but how do you get through those really hard times, not the social media hard times, like the
really
times,
hard times
where when you're in it, you're like, how the fuck am I going to get through this?
Yeah, in the times for this trip specifically, I think about everyone that sacrificed something for me to be doing this. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'd quit my job, my partner's quit his job. I had even my dad take long service leave for the Cape bit because he helps with the car. I had, you know, my partner, Charity of the Wilderness Society, put so much time into planning, and everyone I'd worked hard to get on board to then stop. It just, to me, as much as I was in this much pain, I'd almost expected that pain to come and thought, this is it now. I'm here in it. It's real now. I just have to keep going, and it should fade. And I had this really strong belief that I would feel worse quitting than I would going through the pain of it. And I guess that's obviously worked because I did get through that I guess period of pain. But it does keep coming up, and I think I just lean on everyone that's, you know, donated or done something to me to just try and not let anybody down and not let myself down, because I would be really disappointed in myself if I stopped. And I just think, yeah, it's like they say, what is it? Pain is temporary. What is victory?
Victory is
success.
Forever,
yeah.
Pride is forever.
Yeah. And it's like I sometimes lean on that a little bit, because I just want to be able to tell my own grandkids that I did this. I wouldn't want to be like, oh, I got halfway through it, you know. And if I get injured and I can't run from now, I'll still be very proud of how far I've got. But if I can't even walk or crawl, I think I'm going to keep going until I physically can't go any further. I think it will be my body. I hope it will be my body that breaks before I do. My mind does.
I think you're like, from what I can see and how you hold yourself after doing 90-odd consecutive marathons, I think it's your mind. Like your mind's there. You're doing it. You're in the middle of it, and you look good. You know, you look healthy. You look strong. I think it's your body that's going to break down first, 100%. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
And with that, and in saying that, you know, what does a breakdown to you? Like, what has been one of the lowest moments in this past 3 months that you've experienced?
There was a moment where, I mean, I look surprisingly good when I run, but behind the scenes in the afternoons, I'm such a wreck. Like, I can't do, you know, even just getting up to come to a podcast, it's a lot of energy, and I spend a lot of my afternoons very emotional because it's a lot to do when I just want to be asleep. And I'm very grateful for everything. And so I've got this internal dialogue where it's like, you should be happy that you have an interview. You should be happy that you have this. But also it's like, I just need to sleep. So it's about balancing those two. And there was a couple of days in a row where I remember being so miserable and moody that I felt like for everyone around me I wasn't a good person. And then I remember thinking, oh, is this the person I want to be? And that's actually what almost derailed me. I thought, I'm actually not a good person when I'm this fatigued. And it wasn't my body, it was just me thinking, I'm being snappy, I'm being, particularly to my partner, I was being a bit like, I wasn't helping with literally anything, I wasn't doing any cooking or cleaning, and that almost derailed me. But then I realised it's like, no, we're out here for a reason, it's a very short amount of time. And I think also at the same time my body adapted a little bit more to the exercise load, and I actually did get a lot of energy back, and kind of now I'm at a point where I find my energy in the afternoons is actually relatively good compared to what it was at the start. But it was more, how it transformed my entire being to be just almost like a zombie just walking through the day, like unsure of everything. But that's settled now, so hopefully it doesn't come back.
What do they say? They say like the first 2 weeks is it's the adaptation phase. Like your body's going, what the fuck are you doing to me?
I think that lasted, no joke, 2 months, that whole foggy fatigue. My physical body, but the fatigue lasted months. And it's actually slowly, it comes and goes. And when it's there, it's really hard to get through. And then you'll have, and then you try not to take it into the run as well. You try and just, when you do get that tired, just have a sleep if you can. But there's so much going on, sometimes it's hard to. It's balancing. I'm feeling sometimes really overwhelmed by the balance of it all.
And cognition-wise, like, what are the challenges there? Like, the only way I can describe is like, if I do a marathon and I finish one and I just have a fog. Like I feel great and I feel really good, but I feel just depleted. And
that's me every day. That's what I mean. God. Like I'm every single day I feel depleted, and I have this incredible energy when I wake up, sort of, relatively.
Relative
for
to
what
you're
you
doing.
Can expect. And I run and I'm out there and I'm inspired by what's around me, and I have this huge to-do list. Like, today I'm going to do this, this and this. And then I come home and I sit on the couch and I have a smoothie. I'm like, I can't be bothered doing any of it. Yeah. So it's kind of frustrating where you got these great ideas and no energy to execute them. Yeah. So I just have to be kind to myself, and I'm sort of learning to be kind and understanding that it's okay to be really tired. Everyone expects you to be tired. It's just
okay.
Yeah, it's just
so okay.
It's just me that has this expectation that I need to do more, and it's that's my internal battle.
It's funny, like with running in general, it's like therapy. Like, do you reckon you would have thought what you're thinking now to have a bit of self-compassion if you weren't doing this?
Exactly, probably.
Like, how crazy is it that you can have these like psychological revelations of, just be more compassionate with yourself. Like, it's okay that you're feeling this way just from a run. Or I guess 90 consecutive.
Yeah. And, it's actually probably made me really respect the training a little bit more for when this is over and I go back to, say, a more structured speed or just whatever my training is after this, to really respect that recovery a lot more. Mm-hmm. I don't think I did that in the past, and I probably pushed burnouts a bit too much. But now I think respecting the recovery is the most important thing. Like, recovery is so important into being able to train the next day and the next day and the next day, and just, being a better athlete altogether. It's definitely something I've learned from this, because if I wasn't recovering properly, I would never be able to do this.
Can you elaborate on that more just for the audience with recovery? Because me and a few others, I've had a massive thing with, again, I have a thing with social media, and you hear it and everyone's doing 6-7 day weeks, no rest, go. Again, I'll bring him up, David Goggins, all that, like no days off, you got to go hard every single day. But in real reality, it doesn't work for most people. So what does recovery mean to you?
Recovery is mental and physical for me. I need to, firstly, food, nutrition has been an absolute key to being able to recover for me. And it's not always good food. It's calories as well. So I wouldn't recommend it for anyone, but I'm just absolutely eating anything that's within eyesight at the moment. Creamy soda was my today's unusual item of choice.
Sugar?
Yeah. For me, it's fine. But, for me, getting in a large amount of calories, making sure I give myself some time to switch off mentally from always thinking about the next thing and the next thing. And that can be as simple as reading a book or, you know, occasional TikTok or, you know, something that's just like mindless, just for a little bit. I definitely need like half an hour to an hour of that.
You don't have to justify to me. I'm the biggest TikTok. Like, I honestly, my switch off time is that everyone goes, oh, if you catch yourself mindless scrolling, go do something else. It's like, no, I want to switch off. I want to, it's okay. I just want to do what I want to do to make me feel good. Thank you.
Mindless is the key there. It has to be, because we're all such fast-paced people these days, and we're all so driven and ambitious, and we're in this amazing time of our lives where we have so much potential as people. You know, we don't have to do what, you know, we're learning that we can think outside the box. And so we're doing so much that I think you do need to remember that we never used to be this fast-paced, and slowing down mentally helps you physically recover. I would like to say I'm doing more massage and stretch, but for anyone that's been outside lately, particularly with the rain, there's more mosquitoes than anything else. And so and I'm camping, so I lay down my mat and I'll go to stretch, and you hear zzz, and then midges. So stretching's been hard. Foam rolling's been hard, but I try and get I used to get a massage every week from my coach, who's a remedial therapist. I've had 3 massages in 93 marathons, so it's not enough.
Oh my God.
Not enough. I've had physio, but no actual just remedials. So yeah, that's the next thing I need to try. And it's hard because you're not in towns to get treatment. So when I'm in a town like here, I'll book one in for tomorrow.
Yeah, just you're here. Yeah, you're home essentially. Yeah. Now, what is a day like? What is the day in the life for you? Because what I'm trying to figure out, you'll run 42.2, and then will you mark a spot, or are you just running from town to town? Yep,
I'm not doing point to point. Again, because one of the things I want to do is showcase the beauty of Australia to just showcase these runs, highlight national parks. I'm doing a lot of school visits. Yep. So point to point was never kind of the plan. I guess the record's 150, so it can be anywhere. So sometimes I'll do loops in towns. I usually do
cool. Okay, so that makes
I'm because otherwise I would be almost finished with the amount of Ks I've run.
So how many Ks have you run right now?
Tomorrow I'll cross 4,000.
Oh my God.
So I would be done, but I'm definitely going the long way, the scenic way, and I'm taking in a lot more. I'm visiting a lot more groups, speaking to a lot more people about the cause. And I thought, okay, so I'm always heading south every day, or second day I will head south, but it doesn't mean I won't stay 2 days in a city and meet people and spend time in that town. And then move on. To me, it's like right now, it's like you're already done. It's like no, I got to get to Melbourne.
Holy shit!
It's a long way to go. Yeah,
it's such a long, like, you've already run a long way. So you've got what?
2,200 kilometers to go.
Easy.
Just
wake up and do it. Just
I won't stop.
Get it done. No, it's just fascinating to have, a specimen like yourself here. I was going to try to do a David Attenborough thing.
I liked that, yeah.
No, like, you're here, you're doing it. You're not has done it. You're here, you're doing it. You're in the middle of it. So what is the plan for tomorrow? So you wake up, you run it, and then what's the plan? Where are you running to?
This is the beauty of Tip to Toe, is every day is so strange and so different that they fill up, but I couldn't give you a typical day. Yeah. The only standard, or the only thing I do every day is run the marathon. That never changes. Tomorrow I'm going to run towards directly 42k south, so I don't know where that will lead me.
Where are you starting from?
Burleigh. So it'll be 15 to Coolangatta and then 25 beyond that. So maybe
Kingscliff, I think, is 30.
Yeah, we'll be 12k south of Kingscliff. I haven't looked yet, but I'll just run south and then I'll get picked up. But the reason I'm doing that is because I'm running south, but also I'm crossing the border at the same time a girl called Bailey Seamer is crossing, but she has walked from Wilson's Prom to the Cape for 12 months for mental health for the Black Dog Institute. And so she's one of those, powerhouse women that I've been connecting with, and she's taking twice as long albeit she's walking. But yeah, we're going to high five on the water as she...
That is amazing.
Yeah, yep. As she goes north and I go south. So yeah, she's doing it on her own, unsupported. And I'm taking this opportunity to help her out as well. So give her a big hug, give her some supplies and do my bit to pay that forward. So that's tomorrow, and then after there it'll be, the same, set up camp. There'll be a little bit of media because it is 4,000 Ks, which is a big milestone. And then by the time you do set up camp and you've done all that, it's kind of mid-afternoon, and then you sort of have to think about, booking the next campsite. Yeah. And so the days we were worried we'd almost be bored, and I haven't had a moment to even do anything. So yeah, a typical day is the run, eating. We have a lot of background work for, social media takes a long time, creating footage and showcasing it.
So who is behind social media?
Yeah.
Just you?
No, just not me at all. Well, yes, me, I am part of it, but obviously. But no, my partner. So he's a videographer. So
what's his name?
His name's Rye Kennedy.
Shout out to Rye, you're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, he does a lot of he'd be editing right now, actually.
That's what I was trying to figure out. I'm like, okay, you've just run. How are you on your phone, even able to read after this long? Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So he'll create he's the photographer and videographer. So he does the editing. I'll obviously, it's my platform to share how I'm feeling. So it's always me that sort of dictates, I guess, what goes on there. And it's always real. My plan was to be as transparent as possible and try and share the real story. It's why it's sometimes not so pretty. It's just what's going on.
I love that's why people are following you, because it's real. It's not this, of course you got people that did this extra, amazing video every single day, but it's not. That's what I gravitate towards, real, raw truth.
Yeah, and the thing is so sometimes the videos are just astronomically beautiful places, but that's because we're running through beautiful places. I mean, Australia is beautiful. If you go to some of the places we've run, have actually taken my breath away, and I'm like, this can't be my life right now. I can't physically be running on this beach. Why aren't we doing this every day? This is amazing, And so I've had those moments that are just awe-inspiring. And you have your moments when you're running down the Bruce and there's a truck and dust and animals just hit. And you're like, oh, so you get you get all of it. But we're definitely trying to capture as much as possible. But so he also does a lot of the cooking. He's the one that listens to my 11 cries a day. And does all that kind of emotional support as well. So yeah, it's definitely a team effort. I'm the only one running, but I'm not the only one in this. That's for sure.
I think everyone's a part of it. And I just, to me, I can't comprehend one, you're doing such an amazing job. You really are. For the reasons you're doing it, to the people you're meeting, and the impact you're having on the people that you're meeting.
Thank you.
It's and you're such a positive person. You're this far in, and you're holding yourself like this. It's amazing.
It's hard. Seriously. I'll be honest. There's a lot of strength that I pull from, and sometimes I just want to be in Melbourne, and sometimes I never want it to end, and I fluctuate. There's nothing in the middle. It's just either that or the other. And I spend a lot of time trying to just keep the needle towards never wanting it to end, and just remind me. And I've had to learn to set boundaries, actually, on that. I've had to learn to say no to things that in any other time I would love to say yes to, and whether or not they're partnerships that don't particularly align, or they're things that will just not benefit my energy levels. Even if they're great things, you kind of have to prioritize the run before everything else. And then, the run and the cause, because, if I'm not running, I can't share the cause. So if it's not those two things, I sometimes have to say no. And that's been hard for me because I'm a yes person. I'm a people pleaser. And so you've had to learn this kind of strength about pushing back and setting more boundaries than I've ever had to set before. So I'm learning so much about every aspect of my life. And I think I won't be the same after this. I'll be, fingers crossed, a better person, probably a more tired person for a little while at least. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of life lessons that I think I'll pull out of this. And yeah, if I can maintain my positivity until the end, I'll be stoked.
I think you will. I think that's just who you are as a person. I really think when you cross that, 6,200 kilometre mark, you're going to be there's going to be tears. There's going to be a lot there, but I think this is who you are. Deep down, this is the realest, rawest version of you you're hurt. Like right now, you're probably hurting on the inside, but you know, I don't think you're putting on a front. I think this is who you are, and that's amazing. And it's hard for people. You know, you see some videos where the guys or girls are just head down and they don't want to talk to anyone, but I think you're just this vibrant. That's just who you are. It's great. It's refreshing. It's refreshing.
Yeah, and it's funny because I you know, sometimes my partner will be like, you have to look, because he'll be filming because he's making a film, and he goes, you have to look like you're hurting. So he'll say, you've just finished your marathon, look puffed. I'm like, mate, I literally did just finish the marathon. This is how I look. Like, I'm not making it up. Yeah. This is me, how I finished it. And it's because, you know, I'm going for endurance. I'm not trying to go for a PB every day. So I will finish. And actually, I was telling the crew yesterday, you know, my heart rate only sits at around 110, 120, just because it's so low, and that's cool. And it's come down over time for sure. It was probably like 150 at the start, but yeah, it's because my body's just adapting to a bit of a slow burn. I've turned from a racer to a diesel, you know, or a steam train that just chugs along. But so I never look like out of breath, but I do just look drained. So you know, you're fatigued and you're a bit zonked, but yeah, you're not like ever
110. That's low.
Yeah, it's silly.
So like yesterday, because I've had about 2 months off running, just to do some gym work and work on myself and up here. And I went for, you know, that run yesterday. The heat didn't help, but I went up one slight little incline and my heart rate spiked to like 155. And I'm going, and you're doing, and I was thinking, I was honestly thinking, I was like, your heart rate's like 120. How are you? Like, and not how, because you've done so many consecutive marathons. So it does still spike on hills, and that's funny because I've actually notoriously been missing hills. Like, I've had hills, don't get me wrong, 93 days is going to be hills. Like Toowoomba, hilly AF. But I've had really flat runs. And so, yeah, I've had so many flat runs that if I get to a slight incline now, I'm like, ooh, this is something. But the really gnarly hills, I think these days, I'll like walk jog them just because you got to look after the legs. Yeah. And the hilliest places I've been are really random places. Like the hilliest run I had was running from Gladstone to Tannum Sands. Yeah. I took the back road that they train cross country over, which I didn't know, and it went straight up, straight down, straight. I was like, where am I? Yeah. So you do accidentally end up in a bit of a shit fight with some hills, but no, it's okay. No, it's just the human body, like just what do you want? The engine, the human spirit, body, whatever you want to call it. It's so much. It's capable of so much, like so much.
I'm learning. We are unstoppable if we set our minds to something.
And it's all mental.
Absolutely.
It's all mental, and I think that really ties in with this next question, because for me, it's a main thing that comes up in my life a lot. And you know, I say on this podcast, when I get these guests such as yourself on, it's for me to learn about it as well, and you know, how can I apply that to my life? Now, you know, the big thing for me is self-doubt. How do you get through the self-doubt of, you know, because everyone goes, oh, you just go do it. But when when you started this thing, of course you would have had some sort of, can I actually do it? And you know, that could be anything in your life, not just the context modality of running. But how do you get past that, can I do it, and really push through and perform like you are?
Yeah, interesting question. I remember feeling self-doubt before it started. I remember we had a few key sponsors that said no. You learn to hear no. And I remember getting weeks into the prep and being like, man, I don't have anyone on board. Maybe no one actually cares or wants me to do this or thinks it's worthwhile. And, you know, you go in so gung-ho because you're like, oh, this is so great. I'm going to make such an impact. And then when you get no after no after no, you think, oh, okay, well, that sucks. And that's probably when I had the biggest bout of self-doubt. And I hadn't resigned at that point. And I thought, all right, well, I can't really afford to do this without specific things sponsored, and I'm quitting this amazing job that I've got. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should reconsider. Maybe I should do something smaller so I don't have to quit. I'll take time instead. And I do remember backpedaling a lot then. But I think at the golden hour, we maybe got this one yes, and then that one yes motivated me to be like, all right, I'll keep going for a little bit longer, and I forget this one, then that's a yeah, and like it built up like that. But that's when I had all the doubt. And surprisingly, since I started running, which is I guess just what I do normally, that has gone. Even when I had injuries, I still thought I'm going to get through this. They were so bad, but I thought I'll still walk. I'll do something. But yeah, I haven't had any doubt, strangely. And I think if I allow any to come in, I'll stop. So I'm just have this brick wall that's like, there's no other thought that enters my mind, but you'll do it. Because if I let anything else in, but yeah, I remember all my doubt was before, and the second I started, it faded. So I think, I'm not sure if that's just ingrained in me or if running just feels natural and just at ease. Or
maybe the moral of the story is just do the thing.
Just do it, yeah.
Just do it. Just get it done.
Just get it done, because you may as well try. I mean, before this, I'd never run 2 consecutive marathons, you know, and the longest run I'd done before this was the Guzzler Ultra, which I got disqualified from.
For what?
I didn't have enough water. I did. Oh. My bladder anyway, I've told, but yeah, I've told the story a few times, but I was stoked. I won. I was like elated. I was like, It was 55 Ks, my longest run ever. And I was like, yes, I'm going to be on the podium. And yeah, no, I didn't have enough water, which is my fault. But I was carrying 2 drink bottles, and it was like, yeah, just under I think it was 1.5 or 2 litres. I think I had just under. So yeah, I wasn't. But, you know, no love lost. It was
you still won it. Technically,
I still ran it. And yeah, that was my longest run, and that was 54 Ks, and that was 3 or 4 weeks out. But prior to that, it had just been marathons. I just entered marathon races to train for this, and yeah, so I never believed I could do it. I just thought I'd come out and see what I could do.
Yeah. Well, I know we timing wise, I think we've got to land this because you've got to go to an appointment.
I do.
Yeah. So, look, I think, you know, I'm just really glad to be able to do this with you, meet you, just hear the story that you've got to tell. I think the last thing I want to end this on is, what is your message to the audience, to the world, whether it be mental health with what you're doing or getting it done, anything at all? What is your message to...
Yeah. I think my message that I've learnt from this is, you don't have to run, but you've got to, if you've got something you're passionate about, you can share your message through whatever medium that is, whether that's swimming or tennis or, you know, or if you love hiking. Yeah, you've got this incredible ability to be the biggest and best version of yourself and to share that message. So yeah, if you've got even 10% of you that wants to jump in and do it, just do it, because yeah, people will rally behind you. Everyone's here to support you. Just put it out into the universe and jump in and just see what happens, because you just might surprise yourself.
And scene. Perfect. That was with all the episodes, you know, I always say it's really, like, I love how it just ends on something like that, and it's perfect. It's just you articulate yourself very well.
Oh, thank you.
That was good.
That was
perfect.
Fun. Yeah.
Well,
gave you a little shout out, Jai.
Yeah, I think that's
all you need.
Oh, cool, sweet. Well, thanks for coming in.
Oh no, thank you. That was